Hello there and welcome to the MCS Top 10 Most Likely Unseen Issues for Cruisecalm in August 2019. So the first thing to get underway with here is that the basis of my choice is going to be centered around how much space is devoted to the issue in the pre-scene and the degree of importance attached to it by the examiner relating to also that space at the same time that is utilized in the pre-scene for it. Also, the strategic importance of this topic, specifically how it relates to the SWOT analysis that we've done and the sort of importance that it will likely be attributed to it by directors. And then, of course, I've got a wealth of experience now doing these cases as well as my colleagues. We've been doing it essentially since it was created in 2015, so we've got a lot of experience in this area. And we know what comes up in the past exams, we know the typical issues which will relate to some of these top 10, and of course we know how easy it is to write issues on certain subjects for the examiner and how that fits into how they test, and that's very much a key sort of reasoning for some of these topics. So as we go through here, how do we prepare for these issues? Well, we prepare the key models from the pre-scene information and remember to adapt all models for new points in that unseen material. So the important thing is to have some key models like the ones in the strategic analysis, have them at hand during your revision and make sure that you adapt all models, that once you revise that kind of model, you have to add any unseen information into the model so that we can then, get a better response in the exam. The important part that we see in a lot of examiners' reports is that students are ignoring the case material and also the new material given to them in the exam, which is very, very bad for their overall writing of a good response. Then following this, you'll want to practice mock exams that cover the key issues that are covered in this presentation. And you want to find relevant real-life examples and then prepare sample paragraphs relating to these issues and learn them. That way you can kind of pluck from memory the kinds of paragraphs that will get you the best grades based on whatever comes up in the unseen material and your requirements in the exam. And of course, as a general sweeping statement, learn typical key points, advantages, disadvantages for certain aspects in the industry or for a different model being utilized. So for example, balanced scorecard, why would we use it? Why wouldn't we use it? And be prepared for which models to use to support each issue that we go through, because some of them, may be semi-relevant, but based on what you get asked in the exam, it may differ. So you've got to make sure that we have the relevance to the issues very much understood in regards to the models and how we use them when we use them. So our first issue number 10, is a new project. Now, one of the key things here is that the basis of choice is that it's very common as a topic. It's very often on the top 10 list. It simply has to be. It's just so commonly asked. Very easy to provide financial information for you to analyse to ensure F2 is covered. And of course, a lot of these new projects will have risks and funding issues, which covers essentially most of the bases. So added up all together, the examiner is very likely to test you on a new project, of course. And the likely issues we'll see in this case is new products. So essentially that would be river cruises, short-term cruises, specialty cruises, and this will center around the need to diversify, sort of demographical changes that we seem to be seeing in the industry, and any numerous opportunities that we have. For example, we could diversify into air or bus travel, for example, and another issue would be just a new project. So for example, like a new factory being used for X, or a new food storage facility in the case of Cruisecalm, sort of just gaining an efficiency with a new project. But it doesn't need to be this grandiose new product. For example, it could just be a project about setting up a new system, etc. So now, how do we talk about this issue? What are the key points we have to raise? Well, is it financially viable as a project is one of the key ones. Having a brief reminder of MPV is very, very important in this case. And also, is it consistent with our CSR, our strategy, our critical success factors, for example? We have a good reputation. Our CSFs are going to be innovation, customer service, etc. Any sort of knowledge and experience on the staff team are very, very important. We also have to think about how it will be funded. So this could be linked to a financing sort of question or investment question. And you must also make a recommendation, even if not asked to do so, because in regards to projects, one of the key aspects is going to be sort of leadership skills, include our justification, include the key action points to take that project forward and understand what its importance is as a project. So, with that said, we're now on to issue 9, which is value chain efficiencies. And this is centered around the 10% or less profit margin that we've got and the new technology reference in exhibits. We need to gain some sort of efficiencies entirely due to the fact that we have such a high gearing and our profit margin isn't really strong enough to generate the kind of cash that will be needed to suffice for our loans in the long term. So it's very, very important that we raise that margin, and one of the best ways to do so is by finding efficiencies in the value chain, saving some costs, etc., passing those costs on for more revenues. But we also want to look at all the new technologies available in the industry that we see Waveline and Saildyne using that will perhaps provide some cost cuttings to our admin process, which is a large portion of our operating costs. Decision making is part of earning leadership marks. So again, having this decision based on what we should do, how it will affect stakeholders, for example, is extremely important. So will it upset staff? Staff are a key issue that we may need to think about as well. So with that in mind, there's a lot of these decisions to be made between different efficiencies. For example, if you reduce the admin department because you've implemented new technology, there's going to be some consequences for staff morale, etc. So with that in mind, the decision-making marks come in here in regards to leadership. So what are the kind of likely issues here? Well, it's where to achieve further efficiencies. This could be economies of scale, or it could be AI-powered processes with, for example, checking in without any staff involvement. Be quite an automated, easier process that way. So what should we raise in regards to value chain efficiencies? Well, what is the value chain and how it works needs to be covered. The implication of strategic decisions on value chain, for example, that automation from software could have significant impacts on staff morale because we likely will make some redundancies due to that. Also, areas of possible efficiencies could also be that technology aspect, but also how big data informed decisions interact with our overall profitability. For example, if we overstock food because we've misjudged the demographics on the ship, then of course that will eat into our profit margin for that voyage, and over time, over a course of a financial year, those kinds of misinterpretations or misanalysis will mean that we have these sort of increased costs that could be saved by being a bit more efficient. In particular, the big data informed decisions that could be more accurate if we perhaps collected more data or in a specific way, etc. Hello, it's me again. I just wanted to take a few minutes of your time to first extend my hope that you enjoyed the free sample that you've just viewed, but also to just sort of explain what else the strategy do to help you pass your exam really effectively, provided you found our sample particularly interesting and insightful, of course. So, of course, we have a study text for every module, ranging from P1 to F3, and the certificate level is also free on our website. So we have study texts throughout the CIMA course, every module you could hope to study. The certificate level are free, as I mentioned, and then the rest of them, ranging from P1 to F3, are all available to purchase. Alongside this, if you're not so much a study text kind of student and you prefer a visual way of learning, we have the course videos. We essentially break down the study text into bite-sized presentations with a walkthrough, and it's a very, very, very engaging way of explaining the course. Following this, we have the pre-scene analysis, where we break down each pre-scene sitting into a number of videos going through the whole document, but also adding a top 10 recommendations for what will come up in the exam, and also a strategic analysis where we put all the models you'd find in E2, for example, to the pre-scene itself, whichever that may be at the time. Alongside this, we provide an industry analysis. This is a document and accompanying video which help you give that contextual information in your exam. So for example, if the pre-scene's on the oil industry, the industry analysis will break down the oil industry, the current topics, trends, issues, what the competitive market looks like, all those kind of aspects, all condensed into one so you can spend your time wisely in your study period. Following on from this, when you actually want to practice all this knowledge, we have mock exams for all of our materials. So StudyText has a generic mock exam based on the module, whereas the pre-scene analysis has mocks available to purchase that are based on that specific pre-scene, that are targeted to the key issues we believe will come up. And if you're not content with just doing those mock exams and practicing that way, we have a marking and feedback system where you can purchase the ability to send in your paper, have it marked by a CIMA qualified accountant, and get personalized feedback on whether you can improve X or Y area. And sort of finally, if you will, if you're feeling really underprepared and that exam is coming really soon, the masterclasses are offered by Astranti, and they're essentially a crash course in anything you could want for that topic. So if it's a masterclass on the pre-scene, it's going to give you absolutely everything that you could possibly need to know about the pre-scene in one really condensed sitting. Likewise, if it was the F3 masterclass, you would have all of F3 gone through in a very crash course style presentation and video link. You can also purchase it post-stream as opposed to viewing it live, all these kind of aspects. We are very confident that these materials will help you get the exam success that you want. So we have a pass guarantee. Provided you fill out a form which demonstrates that you have utilized our materials to a large extent and actually taken the time to study them, and you have unfortunately failed, we will offer you the same materials again for the next sitting as a consolidatory offer to ensure that you can get back on the horse and get that exam grade that you want. With that said, thank you very much for watching the sample video. I hope you enjoyed it and it gives you a lot of confidence in Astranti and your CIMA future.